What's up, guys? We are back with Dana White Contender Series, Week 2, picks and predictions. Got 5 more fights on this card to break down. I've done a lot of research, I've done a lot of taping, and I believe I am going to treat you guys right. Last card, UFC 330, a lot of upset wins. We did call a couple of them. We didn't do amazing on the entire card because of Orlevi losing, because of Yoel Alvarez showing up and just doing nothing. But I do think moving forward, we learned some things. I think this Dana White's Contender Series, I think I'm going to sweep this card. I'm looking at these fights. They're pretty easy to predict, aside from one or two, maybe. But yeah, going in with the first fight, we got Tanner Tremblay taking on Roman Puga. This is a pretty obvious striker versus grappler matchup. Tremblay has an offensive wrestling base, but recently he's been finishing guys so quickly he doesn't have to go to the mat. But he has been finishing a very low level of competition. That's the same thing with Puga. I look at Puga, and he's good on the feet. He's a very aesthetic fighter, the way he throws combinations, the way he touches the body, the way he hurts you in the head. And at a 185 favorite, as you can see on the screen, I think that's rightful. I think it should be a little closer to even, so I do think saying that there's a bit value on Tanner Tremblay. But to be honest, I think this fight's going to come down to whether Tremblay can get a takedown early. I think if he gets a takedown early, he's going to exhaust Puga, and Puga's most dangerous in the first round where he can touch the body. If Tanner Tremblay's getting touched up in the first round, he's going to have a very hard time winning this fight. He's probably going to get finished in the second or third round. But if Tremblay is able to get an early takedown and he's able to control, the one thing I don't like about Puga watching tape on him is he has a ton of submission attempts from the ground, but not a lot of submission wins at all. I think he only has like one. So when you're on your back throwing up these crazy submission attempts against a guy like Tremblay, who's going to value top position a bit more, I think that is pretty dangerous. I think that's a path for Tanner Tremblay to win. I don't think Tremblay has much finishing instinct on the mat as much as he does on the feet against these cans. I don't think there's a world where he finishes Puga. I do think there's a world where maybe he wins 29-28. Maybe he wins a relatively dominant decision. My pick, I don't think he's going to be able to get consistent takedowns and consistent top time, because while Puga is throwing up these submission attempts, he is able to work back to his feet. And on the feet, I think he's going to be so much quicker. I think his footwork's going to be so much better. His head movement's going to be so much better. I think the way he mixes up to the body, he mixes up to the head, I think the combinations that he's going to throw, I think he's going to touch up Tremblay on the feet. I think he's going to beat Tremblay by decision or a round 3 knockout. The round line is 1.5. I do like the over for this fight. I don't really like betting overs, but we saw last week almost every fight went over when it was actually very chalky to go under. These fights they always tend to go under. That's what the betting lines say, because in order to award a contract on Dana White's Contender Series, you typically need to finish your guy in dominant fashion. I am going to be taking Roman Puga to win by either late KO or decision. I think if Tremblay cannot get consistent top time in the first and early second round, I think he's going to get touched up. He's a very tough guy. I don't think he's going to quit. I don't think Puga's going to quit. I think both guys are going to bleed. I think Puga's just the better warrior. I think he's way better on the feet, to be honest. He's way quicker. And I think he's going to touch Tremblay up. No matter how tough you are, if you get touched to the liver a few times, your body physically can't take it and you're going to shut down. I think that's what happens. I think Puga, I'm going to take him to win by third round TKO. With the second fight of the night, we got Muhammad Ali versus Alik Lorenz. I look at this fight, you can see the over 1.5 rounds prop. I hate that. I think this is probably the most playable under 1.5. I think both guys are going to come out with big knockout power. Even though they both did get slept by Ivo Baranuski and Abdul Rahman Yakiev, two amazing UFC prospects that we have right now. Both these guys lost to either one of them. I think they're both going to come in not defensively. I think they're both going to want to throw. Alik Lorenz is a very blitzy style. He's going to blitz in. He wants to land these shots. Defensively, he does leave himself to get hit, which is why I think Muhammad Ali is going to win this fight pretty easily. He did say he was teasing that he was going to try to wrestle, but I don't think he does. I think he finds a counter on the feet. I think he's going to be able to knock Alik Lorenz out in the first round. I do like the pricing on him. If you do give me a good first round finish prop for Lorenz, I think that's his only path to win, honestly, is just blitz in, find the shot. Muhammad Ali has gotten countered. He did get hurt really easy against Ivo Baranuski. He did get hurt. He did get finished really quickly. I do think he's just a much slicker counter striker. He is from a BJJ background, so I think if the fight does hit the mat, I think he's better there too. But I think on the feet, he's much physically stronger. You look at the face-off and you see one guy looks like a random fighter and the other guy looks like a true UFC athlete. I think physically, Muhammad Ali's going to hold a big advantage. He's got much better boxing. He's much quicker on the feet. And I do think he could look for takedowns if he does get hurt. But I just don't think Erlich Lorenz is all that good. I don't think his level of competition is good. And you saw his 2 losses are when he did face someone decent of Muhammad Ali's type, and he lost both of them. I'm going to take Muhammad Ali to win by first round KO. With our next fight, we got Logan Paxton taking on Christian Perez. Christian Perez was on Dana White's Contender Series before. He lost to Manuel Souza in a very close war. We saw him actually take one of the first 2 rounds. It was a close 3rd round, but then you see Manuel Souza just doing Manuel Souza things, finding out a way to get his hand raised, and that was part of the reason I was so high on Manuel Souza when he came to the UFC, is because of his performances over Christian Perez, because of his performances over Balaji Yoki. He's just a very good fighter, so I don't mind that loss at all. I do like Perez at this money line, but you just look at a guy like Paxton. I think he's tougher. I think he's way grittier. I think he does have a tough weight cut, but I think his cardio is going to be much better. I think he's much more dialed into fighting than Christian Perez is. You looked at Tom Pagliarulo in last week. He said he trains with Logan Paxton. He said, I thank Corey Sandhagen for doing all this for me. He really pushed me beyond my limits. Logan Paxton is in that same gym. He's training with John Kuhneman, Tom Pagliarulo, Corey Sandhagen. I think he's much more dialed into fighting. I think he's going to come in physically stronger, in better shape. But I just think there's going to be an astronomical speed difference on the feet for Christian Perez. I think on the feet he's going to be able to hurt Paxton. I just think Paxton's too tough to go away. I do think Paxton's route to winning this fight is wrestling. I think even in the first round he might be able to get Christian Perez down and he might be able to win the first round. But don't panic, because I think as Christian Perez makes his read on Paxton, Paxton's not a tricky enough fighter. He doesn't have tricky enough takedowns. He doesn't make the best reads in order to get these takedowns. I think once Christian Perez finds his timing on the feet, I think he's going to be able to stuff Logan Paxton's takedowns. I think he's going to be able to pull away on the feet. I think he's going to drop Paxton at times. I think it's going to be a very bloody fight. But I just think Paxton, he's got too much cardio. He's too gritty. He's too strong. He has too much determination to go away. I'm going to take Christian Perez to win by decision. I think he does put a beating on Perez on Paxton in rounds 2 and 3. It's just why I'm going to take Perez to win by decision. He may lose the first round, but I do think he's going to come back. Maybe he wins by late KO and tries to get that contract. He's definitely going to go for it, but I think Paxton's too tough. Don't count Paxton out, though. I think at this odds, I think if these odds climb more and more towards Christian Perez, I do think a little sprinkle on Paxton is not bad. But I just think at the end of the day, no matter what happens within this fight, I think Christian Perez finds a way to get his hand raised. I'm going to take him to win by unanimous decision. In the co-main event spot for Week 2 of the Contender Series, we've got Douglas Rodriguez taking on Trent Miller. This fight was made for Douglas Rodriguez to win. He's much stronger. You see in the face-off, he's much stronger. He's much more of a real athlete. He's much faster on the feet. I don't think Trent Miller can really offer anything here. Did lose to Ryan Gandra in his last opportunity. Ryan Gandra has had success in the UFC, but this fight was clearly made for Rodriguez to win. He's going to knock him out in the first round. He's going to get a contract pretty easily. This is pretty much the easiest fight to predict on the card. I don't really have much else to tell you other than Douglas Rodriguez is going to knock him out in the first round. He's going to look way faster. I think if it does hit the mat, Douglas Rodriguez does have submission attempts. He doesn't have a ton of wins because he's just knocking guys out, but he does have a pretty slick submission game if you actually dive into it. He's training with a really good crew. Trent Miller is very gritty. He does train with Sean Strickland and a couple other of those guys at that gym. I do think he's tough, but I just don't think he has anything. For Douglas Rodriguez, maybe he gets a takedown, maybe he sits on top for a little, but Douglas Rodriguez is going to explode back up to his feet. He's going to knock him out. Douglas Rodriguez to win by first round KO and to get a contract on Dana White's Contender Series. And here we are with the main event. We got Namo Fazio taking on Kike Brito. When I look at a guy like Kike Brito, it lists his best opponent as Ronald Paradis. That's wrong. He's fought in seasoned UFC guys like Obon Elliott and Mateusz Rombeski. Did lose both those fights, but I did think against Obon Elliott, he did land the more damaging shots in round 2. I think maybe there's an argument to say he won that fight. I do lean Obon Elliott. I think it was the right decision because he did get controlled. Oberon Elliott did land a handful of takedowns on Kike Brito, but I think when both these guys are fresh, I think Kike Brito is the more technical striker. I think he's going to be the faster striker, but I think that only lasts for a round because Kike Brito throws so much into his shots. He's throwing 110% into every shot he throws, and that's not a recipe for success when you get to the higher levels. You're going to gas out, especially like a guy like Namo Fazil with a huge social media following. He had that scandal that the UFC is not letting him represent Kurdistan. He really defends his people. He really goes out there and fights for your money. I think after the first round, I think he's going to really take over this fight in rounds 2 and 3. I think once he makes his reads, once Kike Brito gasses a little, I think Fazil's going to turn up the tempo. I think Fazil's going to be able to finish him in the second round or third. I think a club and sub or just a knockout is likely. I do like how he attacks the body. I do like how he throws leg kicks in the early going. I do think Kike Brito's going to outstrike him in the first round. I do think he's going to gas out. I think Fazil, if he wants takedowns, he can get them on Brito. Brito has never been an offensive wrestler. He's never been a good defensive wrestler. If Fazil wants that, I think he can get it. I think he goes out there. I think he represents his people well, and I think he's going to win this fight and get to the UFC, you know. He's been a name that the UFC has wanted to sign. The UFC's given him these spots before. He has lost to Jake Baby, or he got that big win over Jake Baby in an MVP. That's kind of what grew his name up to where he is now. He wants a shot at the UFC. The UFC wants him, but they need him to win this fight in order to get him in the UFC. I think he does. I think he finishes him via second round TKO. I wouldn't parlay that, though, because I do think a club and sub is active. I do think there even is a scenario where Kike Brito, even though he does gasses out, maybe he lands enough in the first round to take another round off Fazil and to win the fight. But I am going to take Namo Fazil to win by decision. I think Kike Brito does hold advantages to this fight, but I think in the end, Namo Fazil is going to get his hand raised. And that concludes Dana White Contender Series Week 2 predictions. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more breakdowns like this. I do UFC. I might start doing PFL, but UFC and Dana White's Contender Series, I'm going to be doing both of those every week moving forward. Last week in UFC, there was underdog wins. We didn't have the greatest card that we've ever had, but I think we bounced back. I think all 5 favorites win here. I do think there's going to be some close fights, but I think parlaying up the favorites and putting a few bucks on it, I don't mind that lay at all. I think that looking at this card, I think there's a lot of finishes. We did see last week where there wasn't as many finishes. There were a few that went to decision. I think there were a couple third-round finishes. We had that armbar attempt from Crop Shot that went the distance. And we had Pagliarulo get a late knockout. Tune in for UFC predictions coming this Friday for the Saturday card. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.